Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, May 27th, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about the southwest region of the United States. We're pretty much going to be talking about some key states in the Sunbelt. While it does cover many parts of the traditional South, that's not going to be what's covered in this video. So when I refer to the Sunbelt, I pretty much mean these four states in particular, and I will briefly discuss the state of Texas, though it is not vital for the overall content of this video. Pretty much I'm going to be discussing why and just looking at these states that have become increasingly more Democratic as the years have progressed. I'm going to make a video probably about the Rust Belt and how it has shifted slightly, not too drastically to the right. When people say that the Rust Belt has been trending Republican, if you compare it to Obama's victories, then sure, it very much has been, but I wouldn't necessarily say that Obama is the end-all be-all for comparing a Democratic victory. Obama was a very historic candidate who had a very large victory both of his elections, so I wouldn't necessarily say that's the best comparison. Comparing the Rust Belt to Al Gore and John Kerry's margin, you could very well see how these states were considered toss-ups. Obama was just the candidate that broke through that barrier and made it solid for the Democratic Party. In terms of Hillary Clinton, she brought it right back to where it was right at the start of the century. So again, that's the discussion for the next video. But today we're going to be discussing these states, which total up to around 31 electoral votes. And I really don't think that it's going to be super important to the overall electoral map. Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election by 74 electoral votes. So obviously the Democratic Party is going to have to make up the numbers elsewhere. Hillary Clinton carried 3 out of these 4 states in 2016. So there isn't exactly too much to improve on for the Democratic Party. For the state of Arizona, however, this is a state that has become increasingly more Democratic. I made a video discussing the state of Arizona because it is now pushed way further to the left than we've seen in pretty much any other state nationwide. It has been rapidly increasing. In fact, the city of Phoenix has had the most increase of population in terms of any city in the United States from 2010 to 2019. So based on the Census Bureau, Phoenix is actually the fastest growing city nationwide. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be a very key factor for Democrats in their victory. Phoenix area gives around 2/3 of the votes in the entire state of Arizona. In fact, all of these states, except for the state of New Mexico, have key city areas that pretty much give the majority of their vote in their states. Whether you're looking at Las Vegas and Nevada, that general area gives 2/3 of the votes in Nevada. But the only state is New Mexico that doesn't necessarily do that, where their capital only gives around 1/3 of the vote. But again, still a lot of voting power for a very urbanized area. And when you think urban, you think Democrat, because that's just how the voting trends are. But when you look at these states, the reason why I have them all filled in as blue, because the last time that the Democratic Party won all 4 of these states in a presidential election was 1948. When you're looking at the overall Senate composition as well, the last time that the Democratic Party held all 4 Senate seats was even further than that. FDR was the last president to carry these states in the general election and all 8 Senate seats to go to the Democratic Party. Now, I know you see 2 Republican states, and those are held by Senator Cory Gardner and Senator Martha McSally. But after 2020, it is more likely than not that the Democratic Party does end up carrying all 8 Senate seats here. New Mexico has an open seat. Nevada, there's nothing to worry about there. For Colorado, it looks super likely for a Democratic gain, and Arizona is probably the only one that's going to be competitive. And based off the current data we have right now, it looks like Mark Kelly might actually have a likely victory, meaning 6 to 15% in terms of a margin there. I think it will narrow up, but as of right now, Mark Kelly is at a very good standing statewide. So looking at all of these states, I mean, this would be very bad for the Republican Party, to be completely honest. The Democratic Party recently won elections in these Rust Belt states. They recently won Senate elections that have pretty much led them to victory in the overall Senate elections. I guess you could say 2018, when you had Debbie Stabenow and a Senate race. And actually, all of these states, there was one in Ohio, there was one in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, 2 in Minnesota. So all of these states have recently elected Democrats to the United States Senate. This was probably the last area and the last time that a Republican will have a pretty solid hold on some of these Senate seats. Arizona, when John McCain held the seat, was going to be pretty solid. He was very popular in the state of Arizona, and appointing Martha McSally seemed to be a big blow to the voters in Arizona. As for Colorado, Cory Gardner, though he ran in 2014 as someone who could be bipartisan, has been aligning with the president very recently. That has shifted a lot of his constituents away from supporting him for a re-election bid. So when you look at these states, the Republican Party pretty much relied on a number of states in order to hold their Senate majority. If the Democratic Party loses this election, you can almost say the Republican Party won't have that Senate majority in 2022 without a doubt. There's a number of states up in 2022 that, if there is another Democratic wave, they will 100% win back the United States Senate. We're talking about Senate elections in states such as Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, and other areas, even with retiring incumbent Republicans who have already said they will retire in 2022. And if Donald Trump does win this election, they may end up staying in the Senate because they don't want to lose these seats, but it really all depends. And when you're looking at the Sunbelt area, disregarding the South, I would say that the Republican Party probably is going to lose a lot of their hold on some of these states. In fact, Texas recently has gotten closer in Senate elections. We've seen some Senate elections get closer in the states like Florida and North Carolina and Georgia for 2020. And they should all end up being very interesting for the overall party composition. In 2018, when you look at the states that I'm specifically talking about, Arizona recently elected more Democrats than Republicans for the first time in a very, after the new census, they won back the overall majority. In 2008, I believe there was 5-3 because Arizona had one less congressional district. Now they have 9 in total. Which is why they have 11 electoral votes. So in Arizona's 2nd district, Ann Kirkpatrick, who actually ran against John McCain in 2016, won her House race by a pretty substantial margin. Martha McSally was actually the representative here who ran for Senate, ended up losing this election year. So Arizona's 2nd district went to the Democrats, which was enough to put them over the top in terms of overall statewide representation. That's a lot of districts. In the state of Colorado, however, when you look, the state of Colorado sent more Democrats than Republicans for the first time in a while. You're looking at a 43 Republican majority before and 43 for the Democrats after. Not exactly the worst margin when you look at the overall state composition. They won by a pretty substantial margin as well in the 6th district against a Republican incumbent, so keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to scroll up here. That way I can go ahead and click to the state that I want to go to because I don't like scrolling all the way down to Nevada. And then we'll go ahead and hit New Mexico. So Nevada, let's see here. So not much change, but the Democrats did have a pretty substantial hold. In terms of the overall popular vote in this state, they had a pretty large victory back in 2016. In terms of the popular vote, the Democrats did gain 2 seats here. So this was actually one of the 6 seats in terms of the overall net gain in the United States House of Representatives. The Democrats gained 8%, but still barely got a plurality in the state of Nevada. They then again increased in 2018 based off of the previous margin. And then let's go ahead and go to New Mexico. Let's scroll down here. And then the Democrats officially won every single House race in the state of New Mexico in 2018. That 2nd district is the biggest district. So if you ever see red, it's likely the 2nd district because it's the biggest part of New Mexico. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe I am. Yeah, so it's the only part that I remember seeing in 2018 when I made videos about it. So the Democratic Party narrowly won an election there. It is going to be competitive in 2020, but it just goes to show that the Democratic Party increased or at least held all of their seats to the best of their ability in 2018. When we're talking about the Sunbelt trending Democratic, it isn't just midterm elections, it's also the 2016 presidential election. All of these states went to Hillary Clinton except for the state of Arizona, and it looks like all of these states will go to Vice President Biden in this election. 2016, Donald Trump was actually the favorite to carry the state of Nevada. He ended up losing it. The polls were wrong in the state of Nevada in the sense that they projected a Donald Trump victory. They typically always overestimate the Republican Party in Nevada regardless of the election year. But in 2020, it looks like Joe Biden is at a pretty solid lead. And if the Democrats do outperform like they did in 2016 by around 3%, well, you could say that Joe Biden could likely win by, it's possible, 7%. When you go over to Colorado, Hillary Clinton carried this by 4.9%, despite polling data indicating it would be a closer race. The Democrats did outperform in Colorado, and Obama had very substantial victories here in 2012 and 2008 as well. In the state of Arizona, Joe Biden is also the favorite in the state of Arizona. There were 2 candidates running, obviously, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden was the only one who consistently outperformed Donald Trump in terms of the margins in these states, and Donald Trump has really, I don't think one poll in which Donald Trump has led, and that poll, OH Predictive Insights, has now recently projected a Biden +7 victory in the state in 2016. This was the year it actually got narrower. They projected a Trump victory based off the polling data by 4%. He ended up winning by 3.5%, so pretty much spot on there. But in 2012, Romney won it by 9.1%. So this was a very solid Republican state. There really was no competitive nature about the state. It wasn't really focused on by the Obama campaign, though they did obviously spend money, and the Obama campaign pretty much had offices in every single state. In 2016 was the first time that the Democratic Party realized Arizona is rapidly shifting. Talk about a drastic shift away from the Republican Party. 4 years from then, it looks like the Democratic Party is going to have a very solid victory in Arizona. And despite the Rust Belt state going for Donald Trump in 2016, Hillary Clinton had a very large margin in the state of New Mexico, 8.3% in a state that went for George Bush in 2004. So this state used to be a Republican state, as did Colorado. These states used to be Republican states on the presidential level and were mildly reliable for the GOP, no longer. And Arizona is just one of the four to join the bunch in becoming increasingly more Democratic. In fact, in 4 to 8 years from now, this area could be locked down for the Democratic Party. So the Republican Party is going to have to work around this electoral college shift. They were not really counting on carrying Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico for 2020, but Donald Trump needs every electoral vote he can get, and so does Vice President Biden. But when he's increasing and winning in a state that hasn't been won, winning in these 4 states that haven't been won altogether since the 40s, I mean, that's pretty substantial to look at for the electoral map. I understand that change is gradual and that we've seen it progress over the past 8 years in favor of the Democratic Party. However, it is going to be something to note that the Sunbelt in the southwest region of the United States has become increasingly more Democratic, including states such as Texas and California. Though those states we pretty much know how they're going to vote in 2020 are going to be focused on as well, because they are going to contain a number of congressional districts for House elections. They are going to contain a number of Senate races that are going to be competitive and looked at in the future, and they have been in the past. So when you're looking at these states, the Democratic Party is going to pretty much lock down the Senate in 2020 if they perform as expected, pretty much lock it down in the presidential level, pretty much lock it down if they continue to hold their 2018 numbers in the House of Representatives elections. Really the only area that they're lacking in terms of full party composition is the governor's races. There's a Democratic governor in Colorado, there's a Democratic governor in New Mexico, there's a Democratic governor in the state of Nevada, so Arizona is pretty much the only one with Governor Doug Ducey, who was elected in 2018. So if Donald Trump wins, you could possibly see a Democratic victory there in 2022. But that's pretty much it in terms of my overall analysis for these states themselves. I didn't really mention this much, but Donald Trump isn't exactly positively approved of in any of these states except for Arizona, which is a narrow positive approval rating, but that is before the COVID-19 outbreak. So I am very interested to see the data in these states afterwards, considering that all of them are pretty much negative in terms of double digits except for Arizona. I want to see how Arizona changes their position on President Trump after this, which could pretty much only spell out more bad news for the Republican Party. But I am going to make a video about the Rust Belt and discuss the increase in the Republican votes in the state of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, in those states, particularly because these states, actually I'll probably include in Ohio, possibly Iowa, considering that these states were all Trump states in 2016, but that should be for another video. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all later today.